Hi, everybody, and welcome to Tanya in Real Life. Today, we're going to be doing chapter 6, continuing chapter 6, Parak Vav. Last week, we learned the beginning of it. We actually focused on three main words, Hamidas, Lefi Erech HaSeichel. All of our emotions are directly proportionate to our intellect and specifically to our value system. We always have intense emotions around whatever we value a lot. And we also learned that there's a small-minded way, a small-minded value system, and a more mature, more developed value system. And the path to emotional wellness is all about coming to value truth more than we value comfort, or to recognize that truth is the ultimate comfort, and to be able to choose truth over what seems comfortable on the outside. So the recording didn't come out last week, and I ended up doing it over again. There's one part that's in the recording, but many of you may have missed it because it wasn't. I didn't actually get to say it. So I just want to review it again here very briefly. The Baal HaTanya introduces the emotions of our Nefesh HaBehamis, which are really all of our emotions. Anything that's not directly aligned or related with emotions about Hashem or about our Neshoma or about Torah, about mitzvahs, the Baal HaTanya calls them other midas, and they are rooted in midas ra'is, bad emotions. And they're called bad because in the Tanya, the only good is Hashem, and anything that diverts from Hashem's emes, from Hashem's truth, or anything that could distract us from being conscious of Hashem's truth, it's the opposite of good, and that's called bad. Now, we know that when Mashiach comes, our Nefesh HaBehamis will be completely transformed. Instead of it being in constant pursuit of comfort and pleasure, it will be in constant pursuit of Hashem himself. We will want Hashem with the same passion, with the same urgency and neediness that today we feel around our basic human needs. And today, as we stand on the threshold of this wondrous time, the era of Yemais HaMashiach, it's exciting to have awareness about how we can build towards that transformation in our own lives. And that's because we know our Nefesh HaBehamis always values comfort. As human beings, we're creatures of comfort. That's what our Nefesh HaBehamis wants. That's what it pursues, anything that's comfortable. Now, years ago, people thought that the path to comfort is all about having more money, more things, a better house, a bigger house, more influence, a bigger, better, anything. All that money could buy, all that, skinniness could buy, right? Today, or good external on the outside good could buy. Today, that myth, that idea has been completely busted. It's a proven lie. It's an outdated myth. Everybody knows it's not true. We know that physical comforts and money and all the power and influence does not give us the comfort, the deeper happiness that we all crave. The comfort that we crave comes from within our own hearts, from within our own selves. It's all in our hearts and in our minds. And so when our minds are aligned with truth, we have inner wealth. And when our minds divert from the truth, we have emotional chaos, we have toxicity, we have confusion, agony, and disempowerment. And the ultimate truth is Hashem and nothing but Hashem, right? So when we're aligned with Hashem's truth, that's when we could experience the comfort that we crave. That's when we have the goodness that we want. That's how we have our genuine value, our strong identity, our sense of empowerment, and everything, our courage, our dignity, our worthiness, our resilience, it all comes from our inner wealth that we get when we're aligned with Hashem's truth. And the more conscious we are of Hashem's truth, the more access we have to that inner reservoir of courage, dignity, compassion, goodness, everything that we want, right? Our inner wealth, our limitless inner wealth. Now, our Nefesh HaBehamis is only interested in comfort and pleasure. It's not so conscious of Hashem's truth, and it's not interested. It's interested in comfort and pleasure. Don't talk to me about Hashem. I want comfort and pleasure. And that's why the Baal HaTanya calls it bad. But when we think more about what the words of the Tanya are telling us, the idea that our Nefesh HaBehamis could grow into maturity, that it could be either small or big, it could be developed or it could be undeveloped. Right there, we have the language that we need to actually transform our Nefesh HaBehamis, to develop our Nefesh HaBehamis, to grow it, to become bigger, even from the place of our Nefesh HaBehamis, because we could get our Nefesh HaBehamis, our animal self, our human dimension, excited about connecting with Hashem. And I want to read it in the notes. Here's the logic that we could use to harness the energy and the forcefulness of our Nefesh HaBehamis and get it on board with our Neshoma's desire for connection with Hashem. Okay, we tell it 4 things. I mean, this is a process. You don't have to remember just think about the process. We know that as humans, we want to be comfortable. We want to feel good about ourselves, and we want to feel good about our relationships and within our relationships, right? We want to feel good, feel happy, feel joyous, feel at peace, serenity. Okay. Now we know that money and external things gives us none of that. We don't get it. It might give us temporary pleasure, but true, lasting, deep goodness only comes from something that's true. And number 3 is that the only absolute truth, the only undeniable, unchangeable, absolute truth is Hashem. So when we are aligned with Hashem's truth, we experience the goodness that we want. And this thought process is how we can get our Nefesh HaBehamis to want Hashem with that same urgency and the same neediness that we want physical comforts and pleasures. If you read the book, Your Awesome Self, that is the premise of the whole book. We are talking to our Nefesh HaBehamis in that book. We want relationships to be healthy. We want happiness. We want to be stronger, happier, courageous, dignified, worthy, want to feel awesome. And for that, we need to be aligned with with the truth of Hashem's awesomeness. Okay, so why was I so excited about bringing this up again? And it's because today, in a certain sense, collectively, as a generation, our Nefesh HaBehamis is bigger, more mature. We're 3 steps ahead, in a certain sense, than previous generations, because previously we could have thought a Nefesh HaBehamis 100 years ago. You know, my father remembers that he says the news of the day was when the Queen of England was visiting. The news was that she had 7 different dresses. Okay, one for every different day of the week. A chassin, in honor of his chasana, he took his kapata that he wore the whole week, that was probably filthy, and he turned it inside out. So now for the chasana, he had a new one, right? That was their extent of the physical comforts and pleasures. So they could think that if only we had a good begashmius, we would be happy. But today in our lives, we graduated that stage. We know that inner strength, inner courage, inner peace, inner happiness only comes from being aligned with Hashem's truth. And I find this very exciting because this is just part of how we can already taste and experience the transformation that is part of Yemais HaMashiach, the ultimate goodness, when the whole world will experience Hashem's truth and want Hashem's truth with absolute certainty. Because we won't be distracted by anything else. We'll recognize the value, the supreme value of Hashem's emes. Okay, so let's move on to the next big idea in chapter 6. Baal HaTanya says that in every moment, with every behavior, we are either aligned with Hashem's truth or we're not. When we are expressing our neshama, when we are actively drawing Hashem's light in this world, when we're thinking about Hashem, when we're conscious of Hashem, we are on the tzad ha-kedusha. We're on the side of kedusha. We are bonding with Hashem. We are experiencing that light of Hashem in a very intimate, very personal way. And that's when we do a mitzvah, when we learn Torah, when we think about Hashem, or just Hashem's, conscious about Hashem. And when we're not conscious of Hashem, or we're doing anything other, that is where otherness is born. And I use the word otherness to describe our self-pity, our misery, our agony, and our emotional chaos. And the reason I call it otherness is because the Kabbalistic terminology for it is Sitra Achra. And the Baal HaTanya is now defining the meaning of the word Sitra Achra in this parak. And if you remember, I said in the beginning that we're going to define the word bad, that in the Baal HaTanya's paradigm, bad means anything that is not aligned with Hashem's truth or not conscious of Hashem's truth. And now you'll see that it was not, I did not make that up. It's from the Tanya. Okay, so we're going to continue in chapter 6 on the second page of chapter 6, which is on page 20 in the standard print of the Tanya, but most of the lines that I'm going to refer to are actually in the notes. Okay, so let's read inside. The Baal HaTanya is going to define what is Sitra Achra, and it's important to know this because I'm going to open my notes also, because every moment there's two different states of being, right? In every moment we are in the reality of Kedusha, of holiness. I'm translating it as holiness, but the Baal HaTanya will translate it as conscious of Hashem's truth. We are either in that reality or we are in the reality of Sitra Achra. And since this is such a huge idea with such massive ramifications, the Baal HaTanya will now define these words. So here goes. Okay, first, what is Sitra Achra? What is the other side? And he translates it. Shezehu perish lashem Sitra Achra. This is the meaning of the words Sitra Achra, the language, the terminology Sitra Achra, perish, tzad acher. It's the other side. She'enai tzad hakedusha, which is the side that is not Kedusha. Okay, so now, if the entire definition of Sitra Achra is that it's not Kedusha, now we want to know, so what is Kedusha? And the Baal HaTanya continues, V'tzad HaKedusha, Einai ela hashra'a v'hamshacha miktushasai shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. What is Kedusha? Kedusha is when Hashem's holy presence, his light, is manifest. Okay, Tzad HaKedusha is Hashra'a v'hamshacha, the resting and the drawing down, miktushasei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu, from his holiness, from his light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Now, wait a minute. Isn't everything in the world an expression? Isn't everything in the world an expression of Hashem's presence? Isn't Hashem here, there, and everywhere? That's where he can be found. It's a Beferish song, right? Here, there, and everywhere. That's where Hashem can be found. Doesn't everything exist only because Hashem is at this moment animating it and causing it to exist? And the answer to that is, of course, yes. Yes, Hashem is everywhere, and Hashem rests everywhere. Hashem exists everywhere. But what the Baal HaTanya is telling us here is that there's a unique energy that's called Kedusha. And it's an upgraded spiritual energy. Everywhere in the world is here. Everything that exists only because Hashem exists. But some things and some places and sometimes have an additional element of Kedusha. What is that upgraded energy? How do we define it specifically? Baal HaTanya continues, Ve'ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shayra Ella al davar shabatul etzla yizbarech. Okay? Ein HaKadosh Baruch Hu Shayra Ella al davar shabatul etzla yizbarech. Hashem manifests his presence only specifically where there is bittul. Hashem manifests his presence only where there is bittul. So now we have another question, right? If Hashem manifests his presence where there is bittul, we want to know, what is bittul? And to explain what bittul is, the Baal HaTanya shows us what it looks like in action. I just want to remind you what this terminology is. This is so, because these words are so important, that's why the Baal HaTanya is taking the time to define it, and we're doing this inside. What is Sitra Achra? Sitra Achra is the other side of Kedusha. Okay, so what is Kedusha? Kedusha is where Hashem's presence is manifest in this world in an upgraded way. What causes that upgrade? What brings that upgrade? What brings that extra spiritual energy that we are calling Kedusha? That exists wherever there is bittul. That's another word that we need to define now. So what is bittul? To explain what bittul is, the Baal HaTanya shows us. He doesn't tell us, he shows us. He gives us a picture that we can bring up in our minds. And he tells us that malachim demonstrate complete bittul. Bein b'payel mamish ki malachim el yainim. in action, we see bittul in Malachim Elyonim, in the supernal heavenly angels. Now, elsewhere, the Baal HaTanya teaches that Malachim have constant awareness about Hashem's presence. As Malachim in heaven, they have absolute perfect clarity about who Hashem is, who they are, what this world is about, what the agenda is, what they're here for. It's 100% perfect clarity. There's no room for any doubt. And because of this absolute clarity, Malachim have no agenda of their own. They're perfectly clear that they are in this world by Hashem, with Hashem, and for Hashem. And there's no possibility for distraction from this truth. And that's why they have this absolute constant state of consciousness of Hashem's truth. So if we want to know what bittul looks like in action, the picture that we could bring up in our minds is Malachim, because why do they have bittul? Because they have constant awareness of Hashem. And that gives us the definition of what the word bittul means. Because in halacha, and I think bittul is one of the most misunderstood words in people who study Hasidus seriously and who practice these teachings in their lives. I know for myself, bittul is one of the most misunderstood words, and I'm so happy to be seeing a direct translation, which we'll come to understand a little bit more in just a minute. But first, I want to share the challenge of why it's so misunderstood. You see, in halacha, or the actual word of bittul means nullification. The meaning in halacha is translated in context of nullification. For example, if you have a drop of milk that falls into a huge pot of chicken soup, we might say that the chicken soup remains unaffected. It's okay to eat that chicken soup because the tiny drop of milk was less than 1/60th of the entire soup. And the word that we use for that, the halachic terminology, is batul b'shishim. It is nullified by being 60 times less than the soup. So batul b'shishim is a concept that something could be nullified. But in this context, what's being nullified? What does the word bittul mean in context of our discussion? Every creation seems to exist on its own steam. If you look out the window, tomorrow is Tu B'Shvat, and on Tu B'Shvat, on Chamisha Asar B'Shvat, every tree in the world is getting a renewal of the energy, the life-giving energy. Hashem is giving it a renewal of the life-giving energy for the entire year ahead. But when we look out the window, it looks like the tree exists on its own steam. The trees, the grass, the mountains, the valleys, the oceans, the fish, the animals, the people, including ourselves and each other. We look at ourselves and we see independent entities. The truth is that we're absolutely, completely dependent on Hashem. We're nothing but Hashem's animation of us, right? But when we look at nature and when we look at ourselves, we see independence. We see self-sufficiency. It operates on its own steam, on law and order in itself. And that illusion of separateness, when we buy into that idea, when we buy into that illusion, it actually becomes a delusion. We are creating a barrier for Hashem's light to flow into that space. Hashem manifests his presence wherever there is bittul. And bittul is the nullification of the illusion of independence, as we'll see in a few minutes in the Baal HaTanya's words. But Hashem manifests his presence where there's awareness of his truth. Wherever the illusion of our independence is nullified, wherever that illusion is null and void. And that's the meaning of the word bittul, consciousness of our absolute dependence on Hashem. Bittul says, I am here in this world by Hashem's power, with Hashem's loving, constant, encouraging presence, and for Hashem, by Hashem, with Hashem, for Hashem. And the opposite is Sitra Achra. The opposite is the other side, Klipa, or our Nefesh HaBehamis, because that's rooted in Klipa and Sitra Achra, which says, I am here in this world by my own power, with my own self, and for a purpose that I need to create, for the purpose of perpetuating myself, right? Because by Hashem's power, with Hashem's power, for the purpose of expressing that power, for the purpose of expressing that truth, by myself, with myself, for the purpose of perpetuating myself. And that's really the mistake, that some people think that bittul means nullify yourself. And we do say nullify your ego, because ego is that illusion of a self that is separate from Hashem. Ego is what we create when we're not in touch with our true self, with our true value, with our true identity as carriers of Hashem's light, as a neshoma. And when we don't have that sense of worthiness, that's when we create ego. And that's really what we want to nullify. Now let's go back to the words of the Tanya. So to explain again, Sitra Achra, what is Sitra Achra? The other side of Kedusha. What is Kedusha? Where Hashem's light, where Hashem's presence is manifest. Where is Hashem's presence manifest? Where there is bittul. What's bittul? Okay, first Baal HaTanya, he doesn't tell us what it is so clearly. He says what it looks like. What does it look like? A malach who has absolute consciousness of Hashem. That's that's the bein b'payel. That's the actual, if you want to see a picture of it, you need to see a malach, which we don't see. Potentially, where can we find bittul in our own hearts? Every single one of us, by virtue of having a neshama, has the potential for bittul, because our neshama is always in a state, the essence of our neshama is always in a state of bittul. And when that part of us is awake and alert, and when we're aware of it, we will surrender our life to protect our connection with Hashem. So that's the potential for bittul. And that's why the Baal HaTanya continues to say that a yid who is maybe not, you won't think of him as the holiest individual, you won't think of him as a tzaddik, but just the fact that he's opening a sefer and learning Torah, the Shekhinah is right there with him. That is a moment of bittul. And because it's a moment of bittul, it's surrendering, it's transparent to Hashem's truth. I'm opening my mind to hear what Hashem has to say. I'm conscious of Hashem. I am inviting Hashem's presence. And this ability, this potential is so strong that when 10 yidden get together, even if they're not learning Torah, even if they're not doing mitzvahs, just the fact that 10 yidden, 10 neshamas, 10 souls are gathered together, even for lunch, that kedusha is so great that a malach can't stand it. It's so. The Baal HaTanya doesn't say here that the malach can't stand it, but that kedusha is incredibly strong and powerful. The Shekhinah is with 10 yidden, even if they're not activating their potential for bittul. Okay, now this portrayal of bittul is still not 100% clear, because we see bittul and malachim, we don't have a clear picture of it. The Baal HaTanya didn't yet give us the actual bottom line words of what Sitra Achra is, and what Kedusha is, what bittul is. We still don't have the exact definition of what bittul is. And we gain more clarity from the definition of the opposite of bittul. So what's the opposite of bittul? The Baal HaTanya continues to explain. Aval kol ma she'enai batul etzla yisbarach, anything that is not bittul to Hashem. And here the Baal HaTanya is going to tell us what that looks like. What is the opposite of bittul? Elahu davar nifrad bifnei atzmai. He experiences himself as a separate, independent being. And so that's the bottom line definition of Sitra Achra, the experience of being separate and independent of Hashem. We never actually are separate, independent beings of Hashem. The Baal HaTanya continues to say that there is no such thing as anything in the world that's not directly being animated by Hashem. But we can close our eyes to that truth. We can become unaware of it, and that lack of awareness is the opposite of bittul. Okay, bottom line definition of bittul is, the opposite of bittul is when we think we are independent, self-sufficient, separate from Hashem, by myself, for myself, with myself, by myself, with myself, for myself. So that means bittul is we have this consciousness that we are here by Hashem, with Hashem, for Hashem. By the way, the whole concept of doing teshuvah is returning to Hashem. And we have the same question that we had here in that context. How could we return if we cannot leave? How could we reunite with Hashem if we can never separate? We can never separate. What does it actually mean to do teshuvah? And in the discussion about teshuvah, the Baal HaTanya talks again about bittul, and talks many, many times about bittul, but there too, these same words are used, that there's no distance as great as the distance between two lovers who are back to back with each other. And teshuvah, we're always connected with Hashem, but we have that capacity to turn our backs on that truth, to fall into a state of unawareness and to experience life and engage in life as if we are separate beings unto ourselves, self-sufficient, regardless of Hashem. And tshuva is when we return from the state of unawareness to the state of awareness that we are here in this world by Hashem, with Hashem, for Hashem. And this awareness is called kedusha. So let's backtrack again for a second. What's sitra achra, the other side of kedusha? What's kedusha? Where Hashem's presence is resting, where Hashem's presence is manifest and felt. And where is Hashem's presence felt? Wherever there is bittul. What is bittul? Bittul in action is a constant state of awareness of Hashem, like the kind of awareness that a malach has. Potentially, every single yid has this awareness. And the opposite of bittul, which means the definition, the ultimate definition, the bottom line of definition, because this was all a series of definitions, the bottom line definition of our sitra achra, which is our Nefesh HaBehamis, is by myself, with myself, for myself. Okay, that is klipa and sitra achra. It's a shell of concealment. It's a lie. It's an absolute lie. It's not truth. And when we are in this space of non-awareness, when we get lost in this delusion of I am here in this world by myself, with myself, for myself, this is the root of all our emotional otherness. This is the opposite of all the goodness that we want to experience in our lives, the opposite of courage and joy. And I want to summarize this in context and bring this back to the discussion that we had originally about all the questions about our emotional wellness spread out on the table. So let's summarize this. If I ask you, who am I? Who are you? Who am I? Who are you? Who are we? Each of us has two completely different answers to this question. We have two completely different ways of being, two different ways of thinking, of engaging in our lives. And one is the truth. It's a way of being where we recognize that Hashem is our power, that we are nothing but reflections of Hashem's light in this world. We are ambassadors of Hashem's presence. We are designed, defined, and powered by Melech Malchei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We are empowered to choose how we will show up and how we will express that truth in this minute, wherever we are, in whatever we're doing. So who am I? I'm a carrier of Hashem's light. That's what I am. That's what you are. That's our truth. That's what each of us is. And as carriers of Hashem's light, we have it in us to show up to each and every moment and engage in that moment, in that situation, with dignity, courage, and compassion. But that's only one version of ourselves. It's one way of being. It's our truth, but it's only one version of ourselves. And the truth that it is also hidden. Why is the truth hidden? Because Hashem wants us to choose the truth. And choice is only possible when there's another option. So this chapter, this chapter opens up after learning all about the truth, all about our immense, limitless spiritual wealth, which when we're connected with it becomes our emotional wealth. That's our inner reservoir of all the goodness that we want and our emotional wellness. But that truth has a parallel of equal influence, of equal possible influence in our lives. And the Baal HaTanya begins our discussion of otherness with these words: Zeh le'uma zeh asa Elokim. Hashem created another option, another possible road we can take, another possibility for self-definition. So that when we choose our true definition, when we choose to see ourselves as carriers of Hashem's light, that choice is so much stronger. That choice has the energy of being rested, right? Of being like schlepped, of when you pull yourself forward because you're being held back, when you're holding a door and you're pushing against it and then suddenly you let go, the door flies open, right? So we have the choice gives us that power, that energy, that force, because it's not a choice. It's not a choice that we make by default. It's not just a fact that's there by default. It's not marked with passivity and no energy. It's a choice that's difficult to make. It's a choice that we have to struggle with. Who am I? And because of that struggle, there's so much more strength and energy when we push through with our truth, with that choice. Okay, so we can look at ourselves and define ourselves in two completely different ways, right? We can see ourselves as independent, self-sufficient entities. Who am I? I am just me. I am here in this world by myself, with myself, for myself. I'm only human. I cannot be different from my moods, from my history, from my childhood, from my habits, from my circumstances, from my inborn personality. I have to adjust my dreams to my physical reality. If this is what happened to me, if this is how I was raised, if this is who I'm married to, if this is how much money I have, if this is how much weight, if this is how much I weigh, if this is how I think, and this is how I operate, this is my personality, this is it. That's my end of the story. I am what I am, and that's it. Or we can look at ourselves and say, who am I? I am a chelek elokah mima'al mamish. I am an actual part, I'm a walking, talking, actual part of Hashem. I'm the beloved, precious daughter of the King. I'm a carrier wherever I go. Well, even when I'm sleeping, I am chelek elokah mima'al mamish. I am one with Hashem. I am a carrier of that light, of that truth. I'm much bigger than myself, much, much bigger than myself. So when I see my moods, when I see my personality, when I see my history, when I see my habits, when I see my circumstances, my situation, all of that is just as real as the first version that we talked about. It's just as real, but none of it defines me. None of it defines me. Because no matter what happened to me, no matter how I was raised, no matter what they told me, no matter what mistakes I made yesterday, or what habits I have today, no matter who I'm married to, no matter how much money I have, or how overweight I am, or how bad that feels, all of that is only the beginning of my story. It's the indication of where I need to show up, invest energy to express my truth with more strength. That's the story. And here's where we can really appreciate the value of calling our Nefesh HaBehamis with the word bad. Because labeling it as bad is actually liberating. It's so helpful. And here's why. One of my favorite stories is one that I heard from Rabbi Shterna a couple of years ago. I actually heard it from him more than once. It's not even a story because it never really happened, but it's an imagined story based on what we are describing here in this conversation. Here's the story. Hashem created the Baal HaTanya and Hashem, the angel of death, and Hashem gave him a mission to go into this world and distract us from Hashem's truth. And with that, wreak havoc and destruction and the opposite of life, right? We have our job is to choose life. The angel of death is there to compel us to choose the opposite of life. And so Hashem sends the Baal HaTanya down to this world, and the Baal HaTanya, the angel of death, starts trying to distract people. But the minute people meet him, they say, "What's your name?" He says, "I'm the angel of death." And they run the other way because nobody wants to be engaged with something that's going to cause us such misery, such despair. Nobody wants nobody wants to do something or get involved with something that's going to cut short the quality of our lives. Nobody wants to choose death. In our sanity, we want life. We're not interested in death. So the Malach Mavis comes to Hashem and says, I've got a problem. You need to give me a different identity because this is not working out. Everybody's running away. So Hashem says, fine, I'm going to call you Satan. Satan is not such a bad name. Malach Mavis comes back down, and now he introduces himself as the Satan. When people say it's a Hebrew word, it sounds nice, but what does it actually mean? And then they realize that Satan, the word Satan, means adversary, enemy. Well, you're my enemy? Get out of here. I only deal with friends. I only deal with people I trust. So the Satan comes back and he says, it's not working. It's not working. So Hashem says, it's a good thing because, there's this Tanya. And in the Tanya, people find out that they have a Nefesh HaBehamis. And a Nefesh HaBehamis it sounds cute. It's like, it's fuzzy. It's adorable. It's like, cute little animal. It's personality. It's human. It's not so bad. Go for it. Go with the Nefesh HaBehamis label. So the Malach HaMaves / Satan / I missed one part, Yetzer Hara / Nefesh HaBehamis comes down and tries to distract us from Hashem's truth. And yet people say, animals? Nah. Animals? Well, I want to be better than my animal self. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in something that's an animalistic. That's not who I want to be. I'm a better person than that. And so the Malach HaMaves / Satan / Yetzer Hara / Nefesh HaBehamis goes back to Hashem and says, not fear. You got to give me something even better. And Hashem says, fine. You know what? I'm going to give you something that's going to actually work. That's going to actually make you effective. That's going to actually make you into a real force of distraction and delusion. With this title, with this name, with this identity, you will be able to fulfill your mission with ease and with great success. And what's the name that Hashem gave the Malach HaMaves, Satan, Yetzer Hara, Nefesh HaBehamis? What's the identity? What's the value that Hashem gave it? Rabbi Shtai calls it the yesh. I'm going to call it self. It's the illusion of davar nifrad bifnei atzmai. It's that self, that voice inside of us that experiences life as if it is our true self, and as if that true self is separate from Hashem himself. And the reason why I think this is, why am I sharing this story is because that's really what we're talking about here. And that's the value of the Baal HaTanya calling this bad. All of our emotional and mental illness has one thing in common, okay? It's all a diversion from the truth. If I think I have to be, if I'm worried, right? Anxiety is not a problem. Anxiety only becomes a problem when we're so sucked up into it. We relate to it with seriousness and with truth that outweighs the reality of what's going on around us. Okay, if I have such deep anxiety about what's going to happen tomorrow, and it's not even happening tomorrow, it takes away from my ability to be true in this moment to what is happening truthfully right here and right now. And that goes for depression. Depression is the illusion that I am less than myself. I am less than myself. I am hateful. I am despicable. I hate myself. I will never succeed. I am stuck in despair, in misery, and nothing and nobody will be able to save me. Despair, OCD, right? I must do this. If I don't do this, I am not good enough. I am doomed. I am condemned. I am compelled to do this. And really, and that's just 3 examples, right? But any form of trauma, the impact of trauma, not to, by the way, anybody who, don't take anything that I'm saying as a sign that medication or serious treatment is not necessary. All that I'm saying is, because I think that there are times when, you're trying to swim and the waves are so strong. It's impossible to learn how to swim when the waves are so strong. So sometimes a person might need medication to make the waters more calm so that they can learn how to swim. But you still need to learn how to swim, even if the water is calm. All of us need to learn how to swim. So even if we need medication, we always need these tools, the spiritual tools for our emotional wellness. But nobody should take this as anything like, and if something is working for you, let this be an addition, okay? But really, none of us are bothered. It's not the emotions or the ideas in our head that gets us really, really messed up. It's only when we believe them, and when we believe them to the exclusion of other things. When we believe these ideas are true, right? If I believe that a monster is coming through my door, right? If I'm afraid, maybe it's going to rain through this window. Fine, so I'll just close the window. But even if after I close the window, I'm still afraid that rain is going to come through the window. That's a diversion from the truth, right? So, and that's also okay. Because if I have that fear and I say, oh my, I'm really feeling like it might come in through the window, and then I could laugh at it and say, it's so funny, I have this feeling and I know it's not even true. But I really know it's not true. Then I could laugh at it. But if there's a part of me that believes it's true, that's when I'm messed up. That's when I start suffering. Because when I believe that my emotion is a compulsion, when that emotion becomes a forceful energy that I must obey, that is suffering of the deepest, agonizing darkness. That is real, excruciating suffering. Okay, and that's why it's so helpful to have this clarity that it's bad, because when our Sitra Achra comes to us, when the angel of death, that's the angel of death right there, because it really sucks the life out of our life. When we believe everything we think and we feel compelled by every emotion we have, that is the angel of death walking through our front door. And so the angel of death, but the angel of death does not come as the angel of death. The angel of death presents itself, and we'll see this more as we go through more further chapters in Tanya. The angel of death, our Sitra Achra, our Nefesh HaBehamis, or our Yetzirah, presents itself to us, and we experience it, and it, in a certain sense, it is our self. It's the voice of myself in my own life. The biggest point of change in my life was when I realized that just because I think it doesn't mean it's true. And just because I feel it doesn't mean it's right. Now that's my story. For somebody else, they need to learn how to trust themselves more. But I don't think trust means that everything I think is true and that everything I feel is the only possibility for how it's possible to feel. That's not trusting ourselves. That's limiting ourselves to ourselves. Trusting ourselves means that everything could be true and I want to check it out. But here the Baal HaTanya gives us an absolute paradigm, a measuring stick, a barometer of truth. He gives us the key, the most essential key to emotional wellness, which is a measuring stick, a very, very clear measuring stick that gives us absolute certainty and perfect clarity. Is this true or is it a lie? Is it the truth or is it a delusion and an illusion? And what is that absolute clarity is this. If it's 100% aligned with Hashem's reality, it's true, it's safe, it's going to give us emotional goodness. And if it's not aligned with Hashem's reality, if it diverts even 0.1%, it's a lie, and it will lead us to toxicity, self-destruction, and misery in our lives and shattered relationships. Period. End of story. That's the gift that we get by the Baal HaTanya labeling Sitra Achra and Klipa as bad. He's taking off the mask. He's saying, don't think of this as a benign little, thing that could just it's like benign and it doesn't really matter, and kind of you could just, wash over it. No. Be aware. This is serious business here. Okay? This is a lie. And if it's a lie, it's bad for you. Stay away. Okay, we're going to develop more clarity about this in the next chapters, but I want to open up to discussion. Okay, so I'm just going to repeat your question for the sake of the recording. That what can we explain a little bit? Can I explain a little bit more about this idea that challenges and weaknesses and personality and history and all that stuff that we come with to our adulthood, to this present moment, are indications of where we need to shine? So if I am here by myself, with myself, for myself, then I am limited to myself and to my, so if I am only about me, then if I am in a bad mood, then I have to do my bad mood. And if I feel insecure, I have to do insecurity. Because I am all there is. I'm here by myself. I am only myself. I can only get recharged by myself, or by the people I like, or by what they give me, or what I get from them, or from my circumstance. I'm limited. If I am by myself, with myself, for myself, I'm limited to myself. If I am by Hashem, with Hashem, for Hashem, then myself is still there. My reality, my moods, but then all of it, you see, from Hashem's perspective, why does Hashem give us challenges in the first place? Why did Hashem give us our moods in the first place? Our possibility for unawareness, our possibility for mistakes, our possibilities for weakness, insecurity, doubt. It's only so that we will choose our true self with greater force and commitment and strength and the energy that comes from that. So from that perspective, when we look at ourselves from that perspective, then, okay, so I have this weakness. That's by myself, with myself, for myself. That's a dead end right there. Full stop. End of story. If I am insecure, I can't do that, and I won't do that. And don't ask me again tomorrow, because that would be annoying. Okay. But from the perspective of Hashem's truth, I couldn't do it yesterday because I didn't have the strength or the awareness. But today I could dig into I could lean into Hashem's strength that He has given me. I can be aware of His truth and be aware of His presence, which opens up the flow of His light into this very space. It puts me out of Sad HaKlipa. It takes me out of Sitra Achra. Now I am in a place of Kedusha. His light has an extra special charge. There's an extra flow of energy with Him, and I can carry that. And despite my insecurity, I am insecure, but I will ride on His security and show up with security. And how will I see that I have the security? Because I will do it. It's a muscle that's strength. If I have, how do you, I once read somewhere, it was not, I don't remember where I read it, but I don't think it was definitely not the Tanya itself, but it was a good line. It said, you get courage by couraging. By doing courage, you get courage, right? But how do you do courage if you don't have it? How do you do courage if you don't have it? How do you do tolerance if you're intolerant? If I see myself as not courageous, that is all there is. But if I can literally plug into Hashem's empowerment of me, open my heart and open my mind to receive an identity that's bigger than myself. Yes, I feel discouraged. Yes, I feel weak. Yes, I feel alone. But if I can open myself up to a bigger truth that's bigger than what I thought till now, but it's the truth, it's Hashem's presence, I can experience the strength that truth gives me, and I could ride with it. If I trust it, it's, some people say, if you see it, you'll believe it. But the Torah says, and if you believe it, then you see it. That's how it's going to work here. If I believe it, I will see it. If I trust it and ride on it, I will do it. I will have the courage to show up. And nobody should use this to perpetuate abuse or dysfunction. God forbid. Okay. I just want to put that out there. Don't use this to show up with courage to a situation where you don't belong, but to a situation where you want to do it. You want to do it. You want to do something good. You want to fulfill your potential. You want to use your energies. You want to shine. You want to teach Torah. You want to use the strengths. You want to draw art. You want to publish your writing. You want to share your glory with the world. You want to practice your profession, your expertise. Go for it. Don't let, yeah. So then anything that gets in your way is just an opportunity to shine forth with greater strength. If you look at your life, you or any one of us, if I look at my life today and I look at what, the moments where I feel swept up and absorbed in disempowering emotions, I will always see that in that moment, I am seeing myself as an individual who is by myself, with myself, for myself. And if I want to shift that, I have to turn on the light of awareness and open my heart to experiencing the truth that I am here in this world by Hashem, with Hashem, for Hashem. That's with Avos Yisrael, it's with the relationships, it's with success at work, it's with doing anything meaningful, it's with getting up in the morning and making yourself a healthy breakfast. You know what I mean? It's I'm not in the mood. Okay. My father's favorite line, one of the things he most often said, I feel like I said this before, but I'm not sure. But in Yiddish, the word gleich means two things. It means I like it, and it also means straight. I see you're nodding. I said it already. Okay. I'll say it again quickly for those of you who are hearing it for the first time. The word gleich means straight, and it also means like. So if he would say, I'm hungry. So he would say, ess a banana, eat a banana. I would say, ich gleich es nicht, meaning I don't like it. But he translated it as if he played on my word and responded as if the word gleich means I can't straighten it out. And he would say, es ist krummer hate, just eat it crooked. And anytime we said, ich gleich es nicht, I don't like it, he would just say, okay, do it anyway. And obviously, this doesn't mean bypass your emotions and ignore them and push them under the rug. No, it's okay to tell yourself you don't like it. But the fact that I don't like it is not a full stop, end of story. If it's the right thing to do, it doesn't matter if you don't like it. Do it anyway. And either you'll come to like it, or you'll still experience greater strength. You know what I mean? It's very interesting. Our minds are so powerful. One of my children, when she was younger, she was 4 years old. She was a very smart girl, thank God. But when she was 4 years old, she scraped her knee, and she got this in her head that it hurt her to walk with the scraped knee, and she decided that she cannot walk. And for 3 days, it was in the summer, for 3 days, she could not walk. She could not go to day camp because she couldn't walk. Literally, if she had to go to the bathroom, I carried her to the bathroom. She couldn't walk. But when she woke up in the middle of the night, she walked no problem. She ran to the bathroom in the middle of the night. She, in her mind, decided that this feeling of discomfort means I cannot walk. I can't do this. It feels so hard became I can't. And most of us do this. It feels so hard, therefore I cannot. Full stop, end of story. I won't do it unless someone carries me through it, right? Kids are very smart, but you know what? What you just said is very important, and that's true. Sometimes when we have people in our lives who are extremely responsive to our needs, they can carry us through when we create barriers for ourselves. And with that, they perpetuate our own dysfunction, our own unhealthiness. Really, sometimes people who are maybe a little bit more difficult, who are not so responsive to our needs, and they won't pick us up just because we fell. We're going to learn how to pick ourselves up, and we're going to learn how to walk. And that's not a bad thing. It's actually a good thing. So that's just what I mean. We take our emotions as like compulsions that we must obey. And really the Baal HaTanya is telling us here, yes, it's yourself. It feels like yourself, but it's the angel of death dressed up as the Satan, dressed up as the, you know what I mean? And as a voice of yourself. It's really not your true self. And that clarity gives us the strength to choose the healthier way. And in that choice is our health, is our liberation, is our security, is our safety, is all the goodness that we want. So that's Tanya chapter 6. Important question. You know, when you have a truth, you want to ram it down other people's throats, right? What do you mean? I know this could help you so much. And I think we all experience that in different ways. Everybody has someone in their life and some truth, but really, that is not, people have to be open to it. People have to want it. Nobody changes because somebody told them to change, you know? We have to see it. We have to experience it. We have to want it. We have to choose it. So I think the best way to influence anybody is by really living the truth, living it with love and with compassion. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining.